Let's get to our conversation of today. Nigeria's place in the global climate economy. As you are well aware, in case you're not, the COP30 finished on Friday, the 21st of November, 2025. And, during the COP meetings where these conversations are had about climate in informations, climate finance, climate resilience and all that. And of course, if you followed us on Trust TV, in other programs, we've talked about it, how Africa, which is not even a major, doesn't contribute to the climate situation, but however is the one mostly hit severely by the impact of climate changes. You got aware with the floods, the earthquakes, especially the floods mostly, the landslides and the mudslides that take place in different parts of the African continent. So yes, we go to these meetings, we go to ask them for financing to help us be able to do what we can to maintain and keep our places intact, since we're dealing mostly with the fallout of the emissions that come out from these other countries, the global west and the global north rather. Now, of course, another issue that came up at the COP30 is when the Brazilian president called and said that, people should go away from fossil fuel. That's a major issue that happens at the climate summit every time. Because I keep asking this question. For countries that their major sources of income is crude oil, what do you expect them to do when we say let's diversify away from, crude, from carbon emissions and all that, and let's go electric and all that? How do they do? And because the president is saying people should be given the time to be able to make this move on their own time. Now, we're supposed to have a guest this morning to further have this conversation with us, but due to certain situations, that will not be possible, and we'll just do a brief, conversation on our end about Nigeria's place in the global climate economy. Now, what does global climate economy mean? Let's start off from there. It refers to the rapidly expanding system of industries, investments, technologies, and policies that are shaping the world's transition to a low-carbon future. It includes all economic activities aimed at cutting greenhouse emissions, that is a mitigation factor, protecting people and ecosystems from climate impacts, that is an adaptation factor. Now, mitigation, how do you cut that? One of the ways to do that is you go green, you go renewable energies, you use solar, solar panels, wind turbines, all that to generate your electricity. You go electric vehicles, you no longer have to use, fuel-driven cars. So that's how you mitigate. That's how you go green. Now, protecting people and ecosystems from climate impacts and adaptation, reforestations, afforestations, making sure that the grounds are able to hold when the floods come, building certain things around these areas that are prone to certain climate events like flooding. So for example, let's take a state Kogi and Niger state that keeps having flooding issues. What do we do? These are the things that you could do. That's adaptation process. Now, mobilizing finance for clean energy and resilience, creating new markets such as carbon credits, green hydrogen, electric mobility, and nature-based solutions, developing climate-resilient agriculture, transport, and infrastructure. Today, the global climate economy is one of the fastest growing economy spaces, driven by over $1.8 trillion per year in clean energy investments. Here on Business Daily, we'll try to show you avenues in which you can invest your time, your money, and get something back. And so that's what we're looking at here. How can you, what's our role there, and how can you, as an individual, a Nigerian, partake in the global climate economy? Now, the rise of carbon markets is quite a thing, and ESG investment flows. Global commitments like the Paris Agreement, net zero pledges, and energy transition compacts. A shift in global value chains toward green manufacturing, sustainable materials, and climate-smart agriculture. So even when we come to agriculture, there's a climate-smart way to go about it. You as a farmer, what do you do? How do you do that to help your agriculture, to help your produce not be, at the mercy of climate situations that take place? Now, a shift in essence, now the climate economy is no longer just environmental policy. It's gone beyond that now. It's now where future jobs, capital, technology, trade, and geopolitical influence are increasingly concentrated. Let's get to Nigeria's place in this global climate economy. Now, despite us being a developing nation, Nigeria is emerging as a significant player due to its population size, emission profile, natural resources, and diplomatic engagement at forums like COP30. I'm sure we've done to do so well at the COP30. Some of the things that we came out from that COP30 was an NDC 3.0. We are promising that by year 2035, we would have a 32% emissions reduction. That's what Nigeria is promising. Now, we have a Climate Change Act and National Council on Climate Change. We equally have a newly approved National Carbon Market Framework. And we've now got an establishment of Climate Change Fund to mobilize public and private capital. As I said before, how do you tap into this global climate economy? You as a Nigerian, now the government of the country has gone ahead to give us a climate change fund. Now, competitive advantages we have in the global climate economy is our large carbon credit potential. Nigeria has some of Africa's strongest potential for reforestation, afforestation, mangrove restoration, especially in the Niger Delta, renewable energy expansion, clean cooking, and, household energy, waste to energy, and methane reduction projects. So you're thinking of how you could help, because when we talk about the climate situation, you're not just going to maybe empower yourself financially. You're equally going to create solutions for people and equally help the climate and the environment in the long run. So it's a good thing if we look at it. It's a good measure. It helps the world and equally in a way helps you as well. Now, the global carbon market is expected to hit $100 to $250 billion by 2030, and Nigeria is positioning itself for a significant share. Now, sometime earlier in the year or a few times back on one of the other programs, we had a guest who told us that there is a fund out there, but we're not making use of it. However, South Africa has keyed into that fund and is doing quite a major thing in their country and doing quite a lot. So now it's time for Nigeria to key into those funds as well. Now, renewable energy market is another thing again. Nigeria's huge energy deficit. We'll come into that. You see the situation now. Some parts of the country do not have light. If you were following us on the program on Friday, my guest mentioned that as well. He said something about that along that line. That is Mr. Adebajo, talking about the vast land spaces we have over in the north. Here in the up north, here in the other northern parts of the country, and we could do a lot of solar panels, wind turbines, generating electricity, reducing the impact on gas being our major generator of electricity for us in the country. So that's another way we could go. So now, Nigeria's huge energy deficit, very important, is becoming an economic opportunity. So while you're there wondering, how do I tap into this? This is one issue. You could help in solving the energy situation, the energy crisis we have in this country by tapping into that solar mini grids. Imagine you having that. Imagine you have the ability, the funds. You want to go to a community that doesn't have light. You can take your proposal, go sit with these people. I want to give this community light. This is what's going to cost us. Hopefully, you can have access to the grants and funds available to be able to do that. You'll be solving a problem. Meanwhile, of course, getting yourself empowered financially as well. Now, off-grid solutions for SMEs and rural communities. Again, SMEs, a major part of the Nigerian economy. Imagine finding a solution to their power situation. Of course, that will be good for the country as well. Clean cooking technologies, away from the charcoals, away from the firewoods, going clean. Gas and other forms of cooking, making sure that, it's good. If you could cook, with your electricity generated through solar panel, that, cuts down cost, and of course, they're not emitting carbon so much. So that's again. Now, utility scale solar and wind potential. As I said earlier, the vast lands we have there over towards the Sahara, the Lake Chad Basin. we could put solar panels, wind turbines, and generate electricity for maybe not the whole country, but maybe a state, maybe a community, maybe a local government. That's another idea there. Now, grid modernization and storage technologies. International investors see Nigeria as a high impact renewable energy market. So we are actually a high impact renewable energy market. What can you do? How can you tap into that market? Let's begin to think about that. Now, another thing again we have going for us is to transition away from coal and carbon, emissions and related resources like crude oil and the rest of them. We have certain things that are needed, and you see some of these issues are what sometimes people say are this is why we have insecurity in certain parts of the country, but we're not talking about that today. Now it's about to go to a climate economy, certain things are required, and Nigeria has these things. Lithium, nickel, cobalt, and copper. We have them in this country, and we're one of our major suppliers of these things to most of these electricity cars, EV cars, electric vehicles need lithium for their batteries. So having the conversation, getting to maybe the Minister of Solid Mines and Mining and Minerals are talking about getting a license to go and mine these things and then, of course, export or sell or process here in Nigeria. Very important, another form of getting income for ourselves as a country. Now, Nigeria has deposits of several critical minerals and is exploring green processing opportunities that could plug it into global clean tech supply chains. So that's the thing. We have so much of this. Lithium, very important, used for batteries. EV vehicles need them. Nickel, cobalt, copper, all these are used in the transition away from carbon to green energy and all that. Now, climate smart agriculture. How do we do that? Drought resistant crops. I know we had the conversation about GMOs a long time ago and its impact, but as long as it's not, causing problems, I believe that these things could work out for the good of the people. Imagine as a farmer that you have a crop that regardless of whether there is water or not, it thrives. We're going to cut down the situation of harvest losses and all that conversation of, due to the dry season, we couldn't do that. So imagine that as a farmer, as an agribusiness person, what would that do for your business? So now, we have certain vulnerabilities in the agricultural sector, but there are opportunities for us for climate resilient investments. So again, drought resistant crops, building an irrigation technology that works, digital agriculture, and carbon positive agroforestry systems. So doing what you can. Carbon positive agroforestry systems where we have the trees that are helping. Of course, trees are very important in reducing the carbon emissions in the country because the cycle that happens. The trees taking the carbon monoxide and they give us the oxygen. That's the cycle of life that happens. That is why it's important not to cut down trees at all times and to always make sure that we have a tree around you. Even in your homes, if you have your house of your own, you should have a tree in that place to see that you are helping the cycle and reducing the carbon emissions right there. So Nigeria's position this country well for global climate agricultural financing. Now, Nigeria as a regional climate leader. Now, at COP30, Nigeria projected itself as a West African climate champion, advocating increased climate finance for the continent, a unified African stance on adaptation funding, South-South collaboration between the Amazon, Congo Basin, and West African forest. Now, creation of green jobs for Africa's youth population. So you see now, there's another factor where we come in, because even the youths are there. We can have them there. We can keep them occupied, keep them busy. There is a whole sector not yet, looked into, not yet tapped into, and we can get our youth there. So Nigeria's diplomatic push is signaling its ambition to lead regional climate negotiations and investment partners. One of the stories that came out is that NIMASA has equally set up some maritime thing that is the first in the West African region to do that. And you can see how Nigeria is pushing itself forward as a climate advocate for the climate or global economy. Now, what are the potential challenges that could hold us back as a country, as we all know? Now, slow implementation of climate laws and policies. Now, for some of these things to become very important, we need to have our climate laws and policies working and implemented. Limited technical capacity for MRV. What is MRV? Measurement, reporting, and verification. Investor concerns about regulatory uncertainty. High cost of capital for clean energy investments. Yes, it has everything has its pros and cons. So yes, if you want to go into it, have it at the back of your mind, it's going to be a high cost for you to get into it, but it has great rewards and great returns. Now, dependence on fossil fuel revenues. We're a country and our major source of revenue is still crude oil. So there's that too working against us. Weeks of national climate governance and inadequate data and fragmented project pipelines. Now, what would success look like if Nigeria were to do these things that are important? For Nigeria to become a global climate economy player, it must deploy large-scale renewable energy, backbone project, operationalize the climate change fund with real disbursement, build a credible, transparent carbon market, attract billions in green bonds and climate finance flows, incentivize green manufacturing and clean tech industries, strengthen MRV systems to meet international standards, localize climate solutions at state and community levels, shift gradually from fossil fuel dependence to diversified green income streams. If achieved, now this would position Nigeria as West Africa's climate investment hub, a major carbon credit generator, a regional leader in greenhouse industrialization, a key voice in global climate negotiations. So there's so much we have to do as a country, and there's so much we equally have to do as a people to see that these things come to bear. And of course, out there for you, you're looking for how to invest, something to get into that will equally be of good to you and the environment. Climate related conversations, climate related issues is some way to go. There are funds out there. See how you can get across to them and do what you can and help position Nigeria to be a global party, global major player in the global climate economy. Unfortunately, you've had to listen to me this morning, talk to you about global climate economy. Our guest wasn't able to make it, and that's the much we have for you today on the program. As I said yesterday, the MPC meeting started yesterday, 24th of November 2025, and it continues today. At the close of business, more information will come out. We'll know, will the rates be cut? And tomorrow on the program, we'll be looking at the outcome of the MPC meeting. Thank you for staying with us on the program this morning. I am Chiamaka. Same place, same time tomorrow. Bye for now.